Making headlines tonight, regaining GSP Plus, Sri Lanka to receive duty-free access to EU region starting May 19th.
First at 9. This is Other Derana 24/7.
Prime Minister's visit. Chinese President Xi Jinping pledges 2 billion yuan in aid to Sri Lanka. Dengue eradication. President Maithripala Sirisena directs for a national program. North Central Provincial Council. Susil Gunaratne appointed to replace SM Ranjit. In international headlines, missile tests. North Korea says its military program is legitimate. Good evening, I'm Indivri Amwatha. We start off with your top story tonight. Starting Friday, the 19th of May, Sri Lankan exporters will once again have the opportunity to access the 28-member European Union market, the largest destination for local exports, duty-free. This follows European Council of Foreign and Trade Ministers approving Sri Lanka's application for GSP Plus last week. Sri Lankan exporters will re-benefit from the preferential trade facility after 7 years. Head of delegation of the European Union to Sri Lanka discussed more details at a media briefing in Colombo today.
Regaining GSP Plus, Sri Lanka will be exposed to one-way trade preferences consisting of the full removal of duties on 66% of tariff lines, covering a wide array of products including textiles and fisheries. The European Union will exempt duties on Sri Lankan imports to the bloc with effect from the 19th of May, the day after publications in the official journal of the EU. The EU is Sri Lanka's biggest export market, accounting for nearly one-third of Sri Lankan global exports. In 2016, total bilateral trade amounted to almost 4 billion euros, of which EU imports from Sri Lanka amounted to 2.6 billion euros. Speaking to journalists at the office of the EU delegation to Sri Lanka, Ambassador Thun Lai Mark said the direct benefit of removal of duties will be worth in excess of 300 million euros a year.
It's really an opportunity for the exporters and for the manufacturers to diversify their exports towards the Union. And that's something I would really encourage them to do, not to stick to the traditional trade relations towards certain member states or towards the EU as it's now, but to use this opportunity during the number of years where GSP Plus will still be in place to diversify the number of products, the type of products that they want to export towards Europe. And the other benefit, an indirect benefit, will be that there will be more attraction for foreign companies to invest in Sri Lanka and to start business, to create more manufacturing businesses. And this will mean also more jobs, more job creations for Sri Lanka.
In July 2010, the European Union withdrew the trade facility extended to Sri Lanka, citing concerns over failures to address human and labour rights. After undergoing the process to obtain GSP Plus on the 11th of May this year, Sri Lanka was approved to benefit from the preferential treatment in exchange for the country's commitment to ratify and effectively implement 27 international conventions on human rights, labour conditions, protection of the environment and good governance.
What were your main criteria that led the EU to grant GSP Plus to Sri Lanka at this time?
So I think it's important to understand that originally the GSP Plus concession was lost by Sri Lanka because of serious shortcomings that had been identified by the then High Representative and the then Trade Commissioner back in 2010. These were communicated to the Sri Lankan government at the time. Specifically, they related to failures on torture, failures on child rights, and failures on civil and political rights. The government at the time indicated that it had no intention of addressing those shortcomings, which is why the concession was withdrawn. What we've seen from this government from the moment that they came to power is that we have had a sustained dialogue on these issues, on these areas where we have concerns. But we have seen a progressive commitment from the government to take serious and sustained action in all of those areas to address the shortcomings. So that critical criteria is what led to the decision by the European Commission to recommend Sri Lanka's readmission to the GSP+.
The EU will continue to monitor Sri Lanka's progress in adherence to the UN conventions.
We are going to continue working with the government closely in order to achieve more progress. There will be a very stringent monitoring process of the GSP+. So it will be a biannual reporting system. The first one will take place very soon. It will be ready in January 2018.
If Sri Lanka continues to make the necessary progress, then the country has the chance to benefit from the scheme until achieving the status as an upper middle income country for 3 consecutive years. Meanwhile, economic analyst Hasita Premaratna points out that Sri Lankan exporters should use the opportunity to set up long-term measures that will benefit the country.
We'll have the GSP Plus window for a limited period of time. We can't expect it to be there forever. So while the benefit is there, it's very important that our industries, our corporates capitalize on it and make sure that we kind of establish a framework and a sustainable model that can grow to the next level by using the duty benefits and the competitiveness that it gives to the country, so that you can compete with right now with countries which already enjoy duty-free access to Europe, like Bangladesh, like Vietnam is getting one, the Cambodia, and many of the African countries.
President Maithripala Sirisena has given directives to declare a national program to eradicate dengue with the help of state and private sectors for a period of 3 months with effect from the 1st of June. He gave the directive during a special meeting with the Presidential Task Force to combat dengue at the Presidential Secretariat this evening.
55,150 dengue cases and 90 deaths were reported in Sri Lanka in 2016, while 44,246 dengue patients were identified and 115 deaths have been reported up until the 15th of May this year. The Ministry of Health has highlighted an alarming increase in the number of dengue patients reported this year in comparison to the previous years. Meanwhile, Colombo, Gampaha, Kalutara, Kandy, Jaffna, Kurunegala, Putlam, Trincomalee, Batticaloa, Ratnapura, Kegol and Mathura districts have been identified as high-risk zones for the spread of dengue. President Maithripala Sirisena convened a special meeting with the Presidential Task Force to combat dengue this evening to discuss necessary measures to combat the rapid spread of dengue. Addressing the relevant ministers, state officials, the chiefs of the tri-forces, the Inspector General of Police and a group of specialist doctors including Dr. Ananda Vijay Vikrama, who specializes in dengue, the President highlighted the importance of their active contribution in combating dengue. President Sirisena advised the officials to submit a written report on issues which arise when conducting dengue eradication programs that are designed to combat dengue. He further said that the state corporations, private institutes as well as in schools should clean the environment and conduct programs on dengue eradication 1 hour on a selected day of the week. President further directed the reactivation of bacteria farming which helps combat dengue.
Several new circulars will be issued. We will notify the private sector through the state sector that we will carry out a program. We can carry out the programs when requests will be made regarding the human resources and physical resources that are needed to combat dengue. We will make the work of Environment Police, Tri-Forces, Ministry of Health more efficient and stronger than they are now. We hope to build Raghav and Kalubowila hospitals similar to IDH. We hope to order foreign equipment if necessary in the future. Let us make this program more efficient.
And Chinese President Xi Jinping has pledged 2 billion yuan in aid to the country between 2018 and 2020, in addition to the 400 million yuan China already provides this year for development projects in the country. The matter was revealed when the Chinese head of state met Sri Lankan delegation led by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe at the Great Hall of People in Beijing. Prime Minister Wickremesinghe also held bilateral discussions with his Chinese counterpart Li Keqiang. During talks, the two countries expressed hope of inking the free trade agreement this year.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe met the President of China Xi Jinping at the Great Hall of People in Beijing. During the meeting, the Chinese head of state pledged to assist Sri Lanka in national unity, reconciliation and economic development. Prime Minister Wickremesinghe meanwhile said China's effort to organize the Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation and the Chinese head of state's participation in the World Economic Forum in Davos were both timely.
Sri Lanka is one of the countries that attended the first Belt and Road Summit. This is historical. In addition to China, which convened the meeting, IMF and the World Bank also pledged its full support. This, together with the proposals made by some of the other countries, also means that we in Asia have hope to put together a very concrete and a very positive economic development program.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe also spoke on the latest regional developments and its impact on the country, especially with India boycotting the Road and Belt Forum for International Cooperation organized by China.
Firstly, India has certain issues which I think they and China have to discuss. It's not for us. But India and all will be meeting on the BRICS. Don't for a moment think that India and China are not talking to each other. they are talking with each other. But what is happened that we have been recognized as the hub of the Indian Ocean. Chinese said, yeah, you are the center of the Indian Ocean. Then we went to Japan. Japan recognized us also as the hub of the Indian Ocean. So now we've got that recognition. Now we've got to build up on it. So in a sense, we are looking at the Indian Ocean. So all countries in the Indian Ocean will work together with them.
Whilst emphasizing the importance of creating an environment conducive to investments, the Premier Kiki Yang said various investors will be attracted to Sri Lanka if sustainable stability and a strong legal framework are put in place. During the talks, Premier Wickremesinghe touched on the government's expectations of the Colombo Port City project and the Hambantota port.
We reviewed the progress since the meeting last April, especially in regard to the port city, Hambantota and the other projects. What we are doing is a major transformation. We are not looking at this anymore as mere infrastructure projects, building a road or building a harbour or a landfill for a real estate.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe meanwhile highlighted the economic development expected through the Hambantota Industrial Zone and the Colombo Port City project, as well as the benefits the country hopes to reap on the back of them. Prior to his audience with the Chinese Premier celebrating the diplomatic relations for 60 years between China and Sri Lanka, Beijing Kuku Media, affiliated to Beijing Company, launched an animation movie named Prince of Ceylon. The launch was held in the capital, Beijing, under the patronage of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe.
And leader of the Pivithuru Helorume, parliamentarian Udaya Gammampilla, charges that the government is attempting to repair relations with China, which were damaged due to the government's own conduct. Addressing a media briefing in Colombo yesterday, the MP elaborated on the government's current relations with both India and China.
Unfortunately, after elected to power, Sri Lankan government realized that China is the only cash-rich country which has the capacity to assist Sri Lanka. But by then, present government had antagonized China to its best. Therefore, now Sri Lankan government is in an attempt to regain the friendship, which was damaged by this government itself. But now there is not maybe balancing, but at a very great cost, because most of the decisions taken by the government to regain China as well as to keep India, the things done was irreversible. As a result, the damage and the cost are also irreversible.
Also in local news, Minister Lakshman Kiriyalla stated that an amendment to the Constitution of Sri Lanka cannot be implemented without the support of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. Meanwhile, MP Bimal Ratnayaka states that separatist factions would begin the most from delays in constitutional reform. They were speaking at a public event held last evening in Colombo.
When Mrs. Bandaranaike in 1972 and J.R. Jayawardene in 1978 made constitutional reforms, the Tamil political forces were not involved. But now, no matter what is said outside, every party in parliament is represented in the Constitutional Assembly, so it is doubtful we will get another opportunity like this in the future. The SLFP is yet to forward a proposal while every other party has. Quite frankly, the support of the SLFP is essential to accomplish constitutional reforms. The UNP is looking at this from a wider perspective. Devolution of power is not something new to us. If we oppose constitutional reforms over small issues, then the separatist factions in the north and the south have the most to gain. Right now they are lost, but they are trying to use every incident to their advantage. The JVP has started talks with other political parties to put forward a mandate for democratic reforms. Meanwhile, we are also focused on addressing the challenges and fears of the minorities in the new constitution.
And Minister of National Coexistence, Dialogue and Reconciliation, Mano Ganesan, says that speedy measures are being taken to include the recommendations by the Janata Vimukti Peramuna to the previously passed Missing Persons Bill and assure its functions. The minister elaborated on the matter while speaking to Ada Derana today.
The Office of Missing Persons is among 4 recommendations by a 2015 UN resolution on human rights titled Promoting Reconciliation, Accountability and Human Rights in Sri Lanka. On May 24, 2016, the government ratified an international convention approving the establishment of the Missing Persons Commission. On August 11, 2016, the government passed the Office of Missing Persons Bill with amendments, and it came into immediate effect on August 23rd after the Speaker of the House signed the bill establishing the Office of Missing Persons. The Office of Missing Persons will be given authority to make recommendations to other authorities involved in addressing the issue of missing persons and provide status reports to families. Furthermore, it will address disappearances, abduction and those reported missing in action during the conflict.
Recently, the Cabinet made the approval for accommodation of Janata Vimukti Peramuna's amendments to the original bill, and now that has been approved by the Cabinet. So very soon we hope to bring the amendments to the OMP bill in the Parliament. So we have to hurry it up. So now it is time, and also ultimate aim is to see that such crime never again occur in Sri Lanka. We'll have to see that Sri Lanka is a country free of enforced abductions, extrajudicial killing and any other such violations of
UPFA member of the North Provincial Council, Susil Gunaratne, took oath as the Minister of Transport, Sports, Youth Affairs, Cooperative Trade and Food and Industrial Development. He replaces S.M. Ranjit, who resigned from his provincial ministerial post recently.
17 members of the United People's Freedom Alliance presented affidavits against the Chief Minister of the North Central Province, Peshala Jayaratne, citing loss of faith in the Chief Minister and requested the reappointment of S.M. Ranjit to his previous ministerial post yesterday. The governor, however, refused to accept the affidavits. Sunil Gunaratne took oath before the governor of the North Central Province, P.B. Dissanayake, today as the new Minister of Transport, Sports, Youth Affairs, Cooperative, Trade and Food and Industrial Development.
Only 6 members submitted the affidavits, not 17. We do not know whether they have submitted the affidavits or not. Susil Gunaratne is also one of the 17 members. 5 members from those 17 personally told me that they have not submitted affidavits. The affidavits will be void if one is given over the other. The reason to accept this post is not because of greed for power. I have been in politics for over 40 years. No leader spoke on behalf of us. The Chief Minister helped me a lot. I was unable to refuse his request. There are speculations that several other members have decided to support the Chief Minister. We will get to know about this by tomorrow.
Meanwhile, the members of UPFA who presented affidavits yesterday convened a media briefing to express their views on the matter.
We have the majority in the Provincial Council. We can defeat the budget in the Provincial Council. We can also present a no-confidence motion. It is not a joke signing an affidavit before a lawyer.
Meanwhile, Council's opposition leader Anil Kumar Ratnayaka at a separate media briefing expressed his views on the matter.
The unity government of good governance engages in the development process of the country. We will defeat any force which interferes in that journey.
The Central Environment Authority announced today that a new project for garbage disposals will be implemented in 7 districts across the country. Speaking to Ada Derana, the Deputy Director General of the Central Environmental Authority, Upali Indraratna, stated that the project will be completed and handed over to the local authorities by year 2020.
Actually, out of the Western Province, we have selected 7 districts right now, including all Anuradhapura, Polonnaruwa and Jaffna to implement sanitary landfill under Korean loan facility. We have selected another 3 districts, namely Gappa, Ratnapura and Monaragal, to construct 3 sanitary landfills under local fund. Now we have passed the design stage and in the process of tendering, probably within 2 to 3 years' time, the landfills will be constructed and handed over to the relevant local provincial government for operation. We have submitted our project proposals to the General Treasury for required approvals. I think we are proceeding to do the studies and investigation to establish this landfill in a very technical manner.
Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe, agrees that there was a sense of urgency regarding the government fund requirement related to the controversial bond auction, which took place in 2015. In response to questions raised by the Commission of Inquiry probing into the controversial bond issuance, he considered that there was a sense of urgency in the situation leading up to the auction.
Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe, appeared before the Commission of Inquiry probing the controversial Treasury bond issuance for a consecutive 6th day today. Attorney Chanaka De Silva, representing the former Governor of the Central Bank, Arjuna Mahendran, continued cross-examination. Attorney De Silva focused on the breakfast meeting held a day before the controversial Treasury bond auction and another special meeting held on the 3rd of March in 2015. The 2 high-level meetings had taken place with the participation of Finance Minister Ravi Karunanayake, then Minister of Highways, Higher Education and Investment Promotion Kabir Hashim, then Member of Parliament Malik Samaruvikrama, senior officials of the Road Development Authority as well as higher officials of the Central Bank, including former Governor Arjuna Mahendran. Deputy Governor Dr. Veerasinghe said the breakfast meeting on the 26th of February 2015 had focused on prevalent government fund requirements for ongoing projects at the Road Development Authority. He, however, mentioned that a decision regarding the funds to be collected was not made during the meeting. Dr. Veerasinghe also revealed that he was directed to submit a review report on the 3rd of March 2015 on these particular ongoing projects. Responding to questions raised by the attorney Chanaka De Silva, he then explained that the second meeting with the minister's participation was held on the 3rd of March, soon after he submitted the review report on the projects. Attorney Chanaka De Silva then produced a document with the signature of the Finance Minister Ravi Karunanayake, citing the government fund requirement for the period to be 76 billion rupees. Dr. Veerasinghe said he does not remember the amount required at the time, but explained that he was sure of Minister Kabir Hashim initially mentioning an amount of 15 billion rupees. Representing the Attorney General's office, Additional Solicitor General Dappula de Oliveira, however, highlighted that there were technical issues related to the particular document, such as how it is undated and how it does not mention the party which requested the issuance of the document. Attorney Chanaka De Silva said that those who are interested could examine the validity of the document if necessary. The attorney representing the former governor then inquired whether this particular situation implied a sense of urgency with regard to the government fund requirement at the time, given the deputy governor was required to submit an immediate review report and a second special meeting took place soon after the report was submitted. The Deputy Governor accepted that there was a certain sense of urgency in the situation. The Presidential Commission will reconvene tomorrow at 10 a.m.
And the Colombo Bourse concluded trading in an optimistic note today as the SPI warded off early losses to close a gain of 32.46. Market turnover improved to 1.2 billion rupees. Top contributors to turnover today came from Dialog Axiata, John Keel's Holdings and Nestle Lanka. Meanwhile, foreign investors were net buyers with net inflow of 281 million rupees and foreign participation was around 53% of market activity. We now have Imeshi Fernando from the Colombo Stock Exchange for more details.
Was 1.17 billion rupees with 96.3 million share change in hands in 7,217 trades. The market capitalization at the end of the day was 2,956.89 billion rupees. Top 5 gainers of the day were PC House, Black Lanka Finance, Kalamazu, EB Creasy and Brown's Capital, while the top 5 losers were Madhusima Plantations, Singha Industries, Ceylon Hospitals, Udupusella Plantation and Lee Hedgers. And the Sri Lankan rupee weakened slightly as mild imported dollar demand surpassed sellings of US dollars by exporters. Rupee forwards were active with 3-day forwards trading at 152.65 to 75 per dollar compared with Monday's close. Let's take a look now at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. And in sports tonight, the Sri Lanka Air Force hockey team picked up a 1-0 win over their visiting Bangladeshi counterparts last evening in the first game of the tour at the AstroTurf in Colombo. A 19-member hockey team from the Bangladeshi Air Force arrived in Sri Lanka last week under the inaugural sports exchange program launched. The program, initiated by the air chiefs of both nations, is organized to build relations between the two forces and will include roughly 2 events a year. The teams will meet again for the second match at the same venue on the 18th of this month. And in international news, North Korea says its military program is a legitimate act of self-defense in accordance with international law following widespread condemnation of its latest ballistic missile test. North Korean diplomat Yoo Yong-choi made the assertion today, speaking at the United Nations Conference on Disarmament.
All the military steps taken by the DPRK are the exercise of legitimate right to self-defense to counter such persistent nuclear threats and blackmail of the US and its followers. It is an exercise of legitimate right to self-defense in accordance with the United Nations Charter and international law.
Calls for the implementation of more robust sanctions against North Korea, however, were prominent at the conference. Meanwhile, North Korean state media reported that its foreign ministry rejected the UN Security Council's condemnation of its latest missile test.
On to your weather forecast for tomorrow. Pre-monsoon conditions are prevailing over the country. Therefore, showery conditions in the southwestern region are expected to enhance during the next few days, particularly from the 20th. Fairly strong winds at times could also be expected over the island, especially in the western slope of the central hills. Let's now take a look at the city-by-city forecast for the next 24 hours. That's all from Other Derana 24/7 Primetime News at 9. Mahesh Johnny will join you tomorrow at the same time. But before we go, we'd like to leave you with some visuals from Trincomalee, one of Sri Lanka's most historic cities, home to one of the world's finest natural harbours, making it a prized location during the colonial era. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.
bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.